I just want to make sure you can hear us. Mr. Lyons, Commissioner Lyons, are you on? Commissioner Lyons, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I see the video?
We are. I'm trying to get Mr. Lyons to be able to see.
If you're having a problem with that, let's not hold up the meeting.
What about now? Can you see it?
No. Hey, Renee,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to disconnect and reconnect and see if that helps.
All right, because I have it, the screen being shared, but
Okay.
oh, okay.
She said, and she had everything. She had financial, she had a full house for 4th of July. Oh, no. You know, are you going up this weekend? No, she's coming. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Lyons, can you see?
Are we good to go?
If you can hear,
Can you hear us?
then that may be all that's going to happen today. Yeah, because I have the screen shared, so if he can't see it, it must be something on his end, but he can hear, so, and he can talk.
Let's call the meeting to order.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Orthwein? Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Let it also be noted that in attendance today is our town manager, Greg Dunham, Assistant Town Attorney Nazaro, Chief Jones, and myself, as well as our accountant, Mark Bymaster from Nolan, Holt and Minor. And on the video or by phone is Commissioner Lyons, who cannot vote, but he can speak.
Very good. We've been presented with the minutes from our last meeting on June 9th. Are there any corrections or comments?
I move they be accepted as presented.
Second?
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Any changes, Mr. Dunham, to the agenda? Very good. Our next meeting will be August 11th at 9 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. We do have a tentative budget hearing on September 8th at 5:01 p.m., followed by a final budget meeting on September 27th at 5:01 p.m. Expect to see everybody there. Any comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Ganger.
I have come to bring good news. A couple weeks ago, I came home from the office around 5:15, and there was a car parked in front of a cottage. And I looked inside of it, and it looked like it was filled with a whole bunch of junk. And as any good citizen would, I ran and called the police. And they arrived a couple minutes later, and we could not figure out whose car it was. And so they went on the radio right away and determined that it was owned by a gentleman who lived in Lake Worth. So we said, well, let's find him. At that point in time, a second officer and then a third arrived. So I had 100% of the on-duty police force in my driveway looking for the driver of the car. And we went around and meanwhile, they had done what they had to do to find out, whose car was it. And the net of it was that as we went clear down to the beach to see if maybe the person was just taking a swim. Meanwhile, my wife was at the pool on the phone, never even knew anything was happening. And we looked and looked and looked and finally said, the heck with it. No one's here. So we got back to where the car was parked and it was gone. And a few minutes later, my wife went into the house and discovered that her purse had been opened and some cash that she had gotten, she's in Europe now, was missing. So called the police back again, and to make a long story short, the guy was caught. It was a woman, not a man, who had borrowed the car from a friend and was living in Gulfstream in someone else's house. So putting two and two together, they figured that's who it was. When she came back with groceries paid for with my money, she was apprehended shortly thereafter. And by the time we finished dinner, she was in jail. And the next day, the chief came to our home, explained what had happened, and kind of apologized for not finding this woman in our house, but how would we have known? And I think everything that our police did was first class. And the fact that the chief came later to explain what happened was really meaningful to us. And so I am taking my 3 minutes of time to thank the police force. But I have one other request, and that is, why can't we put one of these cameras out on the pole across the street from our home so that we would have known in what direction did she go, or whatever else might have been a clue that could have helped in an investigation. So I'm asking for you to reconsider whether or not we shouldn't have a couple of cameras on A1A so that to make the police job easier. Not that it is going to make it solve the problem, but at least it would help to ameliorate the situation where, we could have had a lot worse happen. As you remember, a couple of years ago, I went to the hospital when somebody broke into our house and ran me over. So it's I don't want it to happen a third time. And if a camera would help, let's invest in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Kudos to the chief. All right, let's move on then to, if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, I'm sorry. Very good. Let's move on then to public hearing regarding the applications today.
Mayor, if somebody does want to speak.
Is this our opportunity to have our 3 minutes?
Oh, yes, it is.
May I
Absolutely.
speak, please? Thank you.
Sure.
Not quite sure how to do this. This is the first time I've done this in the town. So I think I'm supposed to state my name and
Yeah,
address.
if you just state your name and.
Julie
address,
Murphy at 815 Tangerine Way in Gulfstream and Placeau Soleil. And apologize for being late, Bob, and disrupting, coming in quite disruptively. This is the first time I presented in a forum like this. And so I know that we only have 3 minutes and I want to respect your time, but I hope that you could please give a little bit of latitude for, there's quite a lot that I'm trying to cover today.
We're pretty lenient.
Okay. It's also the first time in 22 years that I've ever said anything negative about our beautiful town. So we've been here for 22 years. From my perspective in Place au Soleil, the development has now been ruined where we live, the entrance to the development, to the point where actually I don't even want to live here anymore. Do I think that the houses that are going up in the development called Blue Water Cove, do I think they are attractive? No. I think they're ugly, big slabs of buildings that don't fit in with the character of our town. But that's just subjective. That's what I think makes Place au Soleil so special. What is beyond my opinion, though, and what is not subjective, is the following. We were misled by the developer about what this development would be. We were given false expectations, to put that mildly. We were excluded by the town, who negotiated on behalf of Place au Soleil, with apparently little regard to the Place au Soleil residents. Chet Snavely, who was president of the Place au Soleil HOA, tried to stay engaged in discussions about the development, but he never received any notifications from either the developer or the town. He said, as a developer myself, I did not think I presented any obstacles and I thought I could be productive. To no avail, I was never considered in discussions of any kind. How unfortunate. Now, I don't know if you, the town, care or not. I know you don't live there. But the town appears to have no control over what is being done and the timeline in which it is being done. The developer does what developers do. He's doing what suits the timeline of his development and his budget. And then in typical developer fashion, he apologizes for the misunderstanding afterwards when it's too late. So I know that plans were approved, but all plans need revision. And in the light of what we have to experience every time we drive into our community and the undetermined longevity of the project, there is no finite date for this project and how long we will be living the way that we're living, in an eternal construction site at the entrance of our community. So on a day-to-day basis, that's what we are going through. It's indefinite because apparently, and I'm not sure of this, apparently there's a 20-month period from the date of first application that the house needs to be completed by. There are 14 houses. 14 applications have not been put in. So this to me is an indeterminate amount of time. There's a house in Delray Beach that has been in construction for 8 years, and all the neighbors are jumping up and down about how awful that is. I know we're probably getting to the end of 3 minutes, but this is what we were promised. Maybe we all had COVID brain because this was in the street in the middle of COVID. That's the only communication that we had about the town that I'm aware of. We were promised by the developer, promise might be maybe a sales pitch, I don't know, increased house prices, which is not true. In my opinion, the house prices may even go down. They've distanced themselves as a separate development. They are not part of Place au Soleil. Improved sewerage, I haven't seen that yet. I'm not sure what the plan is for that. Improved Wi-Fi, and that there would not be a separate development. They would be part of Place au Soleil. A deal that would add a new street to Place au Soleil with 14 home sites. Not true either. So this is what we got. A ruined entrance, an extra stop street within meters of an existing stop street. Sorry, I don't know what that is in feet, but it's a few meters. Increased traffic at the moment with construction vehicles. Increased and undetermined traffic from 14 houses and however many vehicles they may have. Security concerns that come hand in hand with the construction site that continues indefinitely because apparently we have no finite date. We're left at the mercy of the developer who seems to do what he wants. We're coming from a weak position. We have no screening. I don't understand why we're even asking for screening at this point. It is several months in. Why is there not immediate screening that hides the abomination that we don't have to look at every time we drive in and out? And what the town got was increased tax dollars for the entire town of Gulfstream, but at the sacrifice of the people in Place au Soleil. We're the ones who drive in and out of that entrance every day. So the developers got the prestige of the highly desirable Gulfstream zip code and the name of the town. There's already an us and them. They have their own website. It doesn't mention Place au Soleil anywhere. it mentions Gulfstream everywhere because that's what sells the properties. In their advertising, they mention nothing about Place au Soleil. Is this deal or contract or agreement, the way it was presented to us, they were going to be part of our community? It does not appear to be like that at all. So if they would prefer to not be part of our community, I think that's actually a good solution. Put some screening up and make a new deal. Pull the website down and become part of Place au Soleil and embrace the community because it's already divisive. Things that they tried to do that the ARPB turned down. They wanted an exclusive deck for the use of their own residents. We should have seen the red flag then. So what I'm asking for, this is forever at the moment. It might sound dramatic, but it is forever. We have no determined date. Can the plans be looked at in terms of when will this finish? When are we not going to be living with the entrance of a construction site as we come in and out of our beautiful community? Could we please put this on the agenda for the discussion that it merits and it deserves for the August 14th? I know that there are other people in our town who are unhappy. I don't think we're the kind of town. I know that in the past, the way to get things done by some residents was to take the town to court. I think that we're the type of town that shouldn't need to be aggressive and rude and litigious, but I would like to see a swift change to what is happening. I'd like to know timelines about when is it going to be complete. If we have no leg to stand on that, then immediate screening, please, screening that we don't have to look at that for the next however many years. And could we please put it on the agenda for August 14th? Thank you very much for letting me go over my 3 minutes.
No, thank you, and very eloquently stated. Appreciate that. It's not the sort of thing we discuss back and forth public comment, but particularly with the issues you've raised, I think a meeting with yourself, perhaps someone else at Place au Soleil, President HOA, and staff, and myself would be in order. I'd be happy to do it. Okay. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Miguel Newman. I live in Place au Soleil also at 2540 Avenue au Soleil. I have a note here that I would like to read out to you and then give it to the lady at the desk for protocolization. It is directed to Mr. Dunham and it says, Mr. Dunham, find below a copy of my complaints, questions, and proposals to the new Town Commission pertaining the development known as Blue Lagoon Cove. Please consider the items to be included and discussed as official items in the next agenda for the town meeting next August. Additional, please let me know if this note suffices as a request for a public record disclosure about the negotiations that were conducted at the time of the analysis and approval of this development. Item 1. I'm sure that given the importance of the negotiations and approval of the Blue Lagoon Cove development, they have been recorded in detail, and as such, there must be a public record about it. I hereby request that this public record be included in our webpage for every neighbor to read. Item 2. The new entrance is going to be beat up soon by the heavy truck traffic and is going to look like the rest of our streets in Place au Soleil. It is already showing signs of deterioration, collecting water puddles that will result in potholes very soon. I therefore propose, A, that the developers contribute to a special fund to the town of Gulfstream to repair the entrance as needed, and B, while construction lasts, that an entrance be opened as it was during the enlargement of the new entrance to be used for job site traffic. And what was good for the goose should be good for the gander, right? Item 3, landscaping. The developers destroyed our landscape at the entrance even removing a gumbo limbo that we requested expressly to be left alone. Adding insult, it was replanted on their side of the fence. The replacement landscape is coming along slow and unsatisfactory due to the size of the plants used. I propose that our community takes care of this part of the project and the developers put the bill for it as agreed. Number 4, Homeowners Association. I heard that the developers intend to have their own homeowners association and not contribute to ours. Apparently, they're happy to have our zip code, but they don't want to be part of Plaza Soleil. They even have their own webpage where we are not mentioned. I just heard it again. This needs to be corrected now, since our empty lots pay their dues, and so should the developers. Why wouldn't they? Item 5, minor things, stop signs. The new stop sign is an additional inconvenience for us. In less than a block, we have now 2 stop signs and 1 traffic light. Please find a better way of keeping our traffic safe. I suggest getting rid of the first one driving out. Tax revenues, number 6 and last. I propose that the tax revenue resulting from this development are added to the special fund mentioned at 2A for the repair of the entrance if it's needed. I hereby reiterate my request that these items be included as official items for the agenda of the next town meeting. Thank you. Respectfully, Miguel Neumann.
Thank you, Miguel. And you're welcome to join us. I'd like to have that meeting next week, if we could. I'd like to have the president of the HOA and then yourselves with staff, and we'll sit down next week and talk. Okay?
Excellent.
Thanks.
Mrs. Murphy.
Anyone else wish to speak before we move on?
No, it's good. Got your name on it.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mickey Isaacson. I live in the city of Boca, but I have a few questions for the town of Gulfstream, if I may.
It's not a question and answer period. It's for comment, but
Okay,
you may certainly state your comments.
so thank you for allowing that. Why, if you just have to pay a parking ticket, you pay it to Gulfstream, but if you contest it, you have to file paperwork through Delray? Do I have that correct? Okay, I received a parking ticket in the town of Gulfstream while at a private home in a private community, Avenue of Soleil, which is in the city of Delray. Days later, I take a fall on my bike on A1A in the town of Gulfstream, and I hurt myself. And I find I'm in the city of Boynton. On a separate note, why are residents of Gulfstream required to obtain building permits in both municipalities? Is this lawful to require payments 2 times for the same thing? Are all of the residents in Gulfstream being properly assessed on their taxes? Do you know of any narcotics being trafficked through the town of Gulfstream? And if you want to discuss anything in a private meeting with me, I would be available.
You certainly meet with the chief of police after the meeting. He'll be happy to answer those questions.
Thank you.
It can be confusing, I understand. Yes, anyone else? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Candace Rojas and I live, I guess, in Boynton, but what's weird is when I check in on Facebook, it says I'm in the town of Gulfstream. So I think that's a little hilarious because I'm across the bridge with all the rest of the poor people. But I'm here to discuss the election process. And I was a volunteer for Palm Beach County. And we, the people, feel that the whole process is compromised at the very least. And we're proposing to decentralize the tabulation center process so that the chain of custody remains here in your town so that you can have control over your election process. So we're going to each town to mention it because you have the power. You don't have to relinquish the power to Wendy Link and to the whole process. And it would eliminate all of the election deniers and all the things that are happening because there's too many, the chain of custody is broken. And so if you have such a small town like you do, you can have control over the voting to make sure there's not cheating. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, let's move on then to the applications. We have several today. Before we begin, are there any ex parte communications by commissioners?
None. None.
Very good. Anyone who wishes to speak today on any of the applications, please rise and be sworn.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Very good. We're starting with 1919 North Ocean Boulevard. Mr. Marsh.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commission. For the record, Mark Marsh, Bridges Marsh and Associates, here today with Tom Murphy and Corey Meyer, our landscape architect. We're here to represent the Smith Family Living Trust for 1919 North Ocean Boulevard. Just take me through. What I'll do is just take you through some, this first slide just locates the property. I think everybody on the commission is aware of the property. It's immediately south of the golf course or the 18th hole. And then it's bordered on the south by the James Orthwine property. These are surveys, as-built surveys that have been done. And the importance of this is that the property has an enormous number of trees, mostly mature trees. So we have had our surveyor locate the trees because it's going to be very important for us to, and Corey will get into this shortly, to mitigate or move or relocate trees to what we're about to present. There are over 150 trees that have been tagged as mature trees on the property, which again is very rare, and we're very sensitive to that. Before I go on to the technical part, I'd like to, could you put a site plan up, please? Next, this, and ask Mr. Murphy just to come up and go over the special exception requests that we have in front before I get into the presentation. Sure. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and Commissioners. There are the following requests in this application. One, a pool to be constructed just south of the golf club. A gatehouse which will serve not only as security but an office. And two casitas or guest houses on the south side of the property, north of Mr. James Orthwine's property, Mr. and Mrs. James Orthwine's property. The casitas and the gatehouse are permitted as special exceptions in this district, provided they meet two criteria. One is setback, and the other is the maximization of square feet. The pool itself is abutting a non-residential property, and in accordance with our code, the minimum setback is 10 feet. When we appeared before the ARPB, there was a question raised concerning the distance between the golf club's property and the Smith property. Notwithstanding the fact that the code permits 10 feet, the applicant believed that it would be not too difficult for him to comply with what appeared to be a reasonable objection, and therefore the plans have been revised, to my knowledge, such that the pool is 15 feet from the south boundary of the golf club. With respect to the gatehouse, the code permits 500 feet. The plans and specifications provide for 500 feet. Since it too abuts a non-residential property, to wit, A1A or North Ocean Boulevard, that setback is 10 feet.
With respect to Mr. and Mrs. Orthwein's property to the south, those two casitas are within the restrictions of square feet, each being 300. Similarly, that setback is 15 feet. The code also provides for adequate screening with respect to these improvements. And the landscape architect and Mr. Marsh will describe the type and the quality and numbers of screening, both with respect to the casitas and the gatehouse. If you have any questions, please, I'll be pleased to answer them.
Did they change the pool or just the size of it, design of it, or just the
The set-
location?
My understanding is they extended the setback to 15 feet from 10, Mr. Mayor.
Right, kept the same mark.
Configuration, it was a free-form
Relocated.
pool.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So I'll go over the proposal now. First of all, I must just say that this is one of the finest properties and projects we've ever worked on. It's an outstanding estate property, and hopefully you'll see by what we're proposing, it enhances it. Sorry, go back to the site plan. Thank you. So as Tom mentioned, on the north is the pool, which is now relocated additionally 5 feet south of what was proposed to ARPB. And then the other areas of discussion this morning are some expansion to the existing residence on the south side to accommodate a couple of bedrooms, suites, and enlarge the garage and a office/gym. And it's a 2-story building. The gatehouse is on the A1A location adjacent to the entry. And then we propose to add 2 small casitas, which are really 1-bedroom standalone elements. Next, please. I'll try to take you through. This is the existing floor plan, east being on the top and west being on the bottom. And this shows the existing main house connected to an existing garage through this pergola. We're proposing to remove that garage and pergola to expand what I'm going to present to you. Continue, please. This is the second floor. And again, the importance here is that the main existing residence is not going to be impacted by any of what we're proposing. The only connections will be through pergolas, which I'll show you. So that pergola in the garage will be demolished. Because that's part of our proposal this morning is for demolition. So I have to reorient you again because of the size. East is to the right and west is to the left, south below. The north part of this exhibit shows the existing house. We are connecting with a similar pergola on the west side and on the east side. And this represents the new 2-story, majority 2-story addition on the south side to accommodate the new program requirements. So it's a bedroom, garages. Above is another bedroom suite and some of the back of the house, laundry, house manager, and supports storage areas. Continue. This is the roof plan. Again, you can see this is the existing main residence, and that's the proposed, again, connected by the pergolas. In elevation, the top exhibit shows what exists currently. The lower one is what we're proposing today. And you can see the complement. We're not, again, in any way competing with the main residence. We're bridging it with the pergolas. The characteristics and the architectural detail is reflecting everything that exists on the main house. I mean, as I said, we pride this house very much, and so do the owners, and we want to maintain that. Go to the next. This is from the east. Again, the upper is existing with the garage and existing pergola. And then this is a new 2-story bedroom wing. Again, bridged by, connected by the pergola. Again, all the same. This is the south, existing south elevation. And you can see there is a one minor, let me backtrack a little, one minor addition to the main house over a flat roof and a kitchen area, breakfast area, but that's all. Continue, please. And this is the existing and proposed on the north side. It's very hard to describe, but this is looking from on the north side of the proposed addition. That's what the existing garage looks like above. Thank you. This is, again, the above is the existing garage, and this is the new south wing of the addition. The gatehouse, which was mentioned, is going to be a very modest, it's slightly below 500 square feet. We are creating a floor plan that gives it a lot of interest, not just a block. You can see the characteristics and the design elements, again, reflecting the main house to keep the consistency. But the form of it creates a very charming character, again, blending with this, what we call Anglo-Caribbean motif. Continue. These are the casitas, or one of the casitas. Again, they're basically 1-bedroom units. Again, very simple, but again, creating some interest in the architecture instead of just a square block. And this is an alternative, or the other casita, which again is reflecting the characteristics. So this is, I'll show you the perspectives of the project, but right now I'd like to pass it over to Corey and have him take you through the landscape and how we tend to mitigate some of the concerns, especially to the south.
Good morning, Corey Meyer with Navarro Williams Design. Sorry, this is just the kind of the overall site plan rendering here. Actually, can you go back just for 1 second? I think one of the bigger changes we're making is the driveway used to swoop in to the property a lot more, and we're sort of straightening that out a little bit. Have the connections to the casitas. Mark's placed these casitas very carefully so that they're not in the way of any existing trees, which is great. So we're able to work around that. We're able to work around it mostly for the driveway. And then you can see the meandering walkway as well to the casitas, which is meandering around the existing trees. There's a pretty dense sea grate buffer to the south, which is towards the bottom there, that we're not going to disturb. We'll fill in as we need to as well to make sure there's a solid screen as possible. And then going up towards where the addition is, we're modifying the motor court. There's an existing sea grape tree in the middle of that motor court now, which will relocate, which is what this tree is right here. And then towards the driveway and the garage. And again, the same thing there. There's a significant sea grape buffer. We're going to maintain that as much as possible. We'll fill in any holes, etc. Our goal is to completely screen out the neighbor, because as much as they don't want to see us, we don't really want to see them either. I'm going to go to the next one now. So this is just a quick elevation showing the garage. The palm trees on the ocean side are existing. There's the sea grape tree, which we're relocating, some more palms. There's a huge banyan tree in the back, which you'll see in some of the perspective views that we're maintaining as well. There's that banyan I was just talking about. This is looking towards the front of the main house, and then so the sides of the garage. Again, most of this planting is existing, which we're maintaining. There's just the hedge in the middle there. There's a little courtyard garden that we're kind of improving upon with the addition of this house that will develop a little more. And this is from the ocean side. Again, the existing coconut palms that are there, the existing sea grape buffer that we're going to maintain and fill in. And then it's kind of updating the planting a little bit up against the house. We're showing some Garcinia columns and Green Island ficus there, just to give it a little refresh. And then these are the different I'm sorry, this is the gatehouse and the casitas. So you can see, I mean, surrounded by existing mature planting that we're keeping working around, and then just sort of keeping it simple at the base of all the guest houses and gatehouses, or the gatehouse. These are just the quick line drawings. This is planting plan. You can just flip through them real quickly. You can see all these big trees are existing that we're keeping, moving sea grapes around, existing palms towards the front there. Relocated sea grape, the big van in the middle there, and this is the ocean side. That was mentioned before. Originally the pool, which is on the right side of the screen here, was 10 feet off the property line, and we've shifted it so that we're now 15 feet. It's essentially the same size and same shape. We're nestling it within an existing sea grape kind of area there. That's why it's sort of the free form. That's why we're off to the side. So we're taking advantage of an opening in the sea grape without having to remove it. And that also helps us keep the views open out towards the water. These are civil drawings. Flip through these.
So this is the rendering, or these are the renderings of the proposed addition. As you can see, we're maintaining, as Corey just mentioned, the coconut palms, which are a very strong feature on a very open passive lawn area. The materials are going to match exactly to what's there. The roof is slate. The color of the house, as you see here, the shutters are going to be a battleship blue, which exists now. The fenestration will be white, and these will be Tischler windows, most likely upgrading, and all the railings will again complement what's there. Next. This is, as Corey said, there's a new motor court, and this is actually arriving to the house. And you can see on the right is that new block, and again, the one-story areas to the right of the rendering with the shutters, and it steps back, so it's not fully a two-story addition. It's stepping back and again paying respect to the main house. This banyan tree exists and will not be affected by anything that we're proposing. Next one, please. That's it. Okay. So just want to keep it as brief as we could and answer any questions the commission may have.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. You go back to the rendering before that,
Yes.
or after that, I'm sorry, after that. Okay, so look on the second floor, all the way on the left side.
Yep.
Is that wall white, or is it going to be painted the same?
This wall here?
On the second floor.
No, that's just the same yellow. It's just faded out.
Okay.
We're trying to show sunlight. So basically, the family is trying to establish an estate for that's why it's called a Smith Family Living Trust. So they can use it to accommodate, their family gatherings and everything. And as you see, it does not in any way represent any kind of intensive use of the lot. We're very, protective of the lot and respectful. So any questions?
Comments, questions? Magnificent.
I have a question.
It's a beautiful house.
Mars, currently, it's towards the front of the home, there's a shed and a generator enclosure. Is that staying? Or
That
is
is-
going to be replaced with the gatehouse?
That is staying.
Okay,
yeah.
so what's that shed look like? Is it
It's a green, kind of what kind of green do you use to blend
not
things?
as good?
Go away green. What's that? So those are, and the generator was just put in actually recently, so.
I just had 3 quick questions, which I already know the answer to, but I'll ask them so they're on the record. So it looked like to me, because we revised the code and the special exception for the gatehouses, looks like to me you can't even see the gatehouse from the landscape plan.
Right.
With the trees from what I saw, that's correct, which is.
That's
sort of
the
a-
intent, is to nestle it into that.
setback.
Yeah.
And then the neighbor to the south is a bit of a house expert, Mr. Orthwine. So I was wondering if you had any comments or any interactions with him, since we've got a couple of casitas which are compliant with the setbacks.
We have, and the contact, because we've worked with Jim on other things on the ocean. We put in a fence quite currently. We've talked about it, and the assurance is we're going to restore or mitigate what's existing. So that's the point. And I think the mayor had brought it up as well at a recent meeting.
Stanley, that the staff did meet with Mr. Orthwine
Yeah.
and went through every page of.
Got it.
Yep.
He
Yeah,
seemed very
then my last,
complimentary.
good. And my last quick question, do you think you'll need a retaining wall? Do you have a difference on this south elevation? Do you have a difference, or south side of the property? Do you think you have a difference in elevation trying to raise the driveway for the new service court? So you're gonna think you're gonna need one coming down to the south there? See where?
No, you'll see there's a civil drawing,
Yep.
which we kind of skipped over.
Yep.
And that will address that, the drainage and the
going in.
retention. And this, by the way, another technical point, this will have a second drain field for the gatehouse and the casitas. Again, because of the size of the property, you're allowed to do two.
The ARPB did an exhaustive study of this. The presentation was considerably longer. Their only issue was the pool, which has been addressed since they don't need the special exception anymore. Any other questions? Is there a motion? Mr. Stanley, you're good at this.
Yeah, where are we at here? I got it. Motion for application for approval of 1990 North Ocean Boulevard. First motion is for a demolition permit to demolish some of the existing structures as proposed.
Second.
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Second motion is motion to approve a land clearing permit to remove and reclaim existing landscaping primarily in the northeast and southeast areas of the property to create sufficient area to accommodate proposed new building improvements.
Second.
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Third motion is a motion to approve a North Ocean Boulevard overlay permit to permit the construction of a 500 square foot gatehouse and to remove and relocate some existing trees and to accommodate new proposed guest house structures.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Next motion is motion to approve a special exception to allow side setback of 10 feet for the pool. I think that's been removed.
Withdrawn.
So that's stricken because it was moved to 15. Second, next motion, special exception to permit the construction of a 500 square foot gatehouse in the beachfront district per section 7075F.
Second.
Ms. Basil?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine. Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Last motion is motion to approve a level 3 architectural site plan review to permit the addition of a new 2-story wing on the south side of the existing residence, new gatehouse, 2 new guest house buildings, new pool, new driveway location, a modification to existing landscape and hardscape.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's move on. Next application is the Gulfstream School.
Mr. Mayor, I've got to recuse myself for a voting conflict on this item.
Very good. Vice Mayor is recused.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor,
Dr. Smith.
council members. Grace Smith, head of school, Gulfstream School.
One, before you begin. I didn't put the name. Very good. I'm sorry, Dr. Smith. Okay. You would like to talk about the budget?
No, thank you. That's okay. Oh, they have the hard copy in front of them. Okay. We're asking to build a construction, excuse me, we're asking to construct a unit on our property to house a dry and refrigerated food storage system in order to provide a dining service program to our students and staff.
Okay, well, last month when the application was presented, we said it needed to comply with ancillary structure code. And it looks like you're.
Yes, right. That is what we have submitted. That has the pitched roof, I think, which was a requirement, the tiled roof. It's a concrete stucco building. It'll be painted in keeping with the existing buildings on the campus.
Okay. I mean, normally we would have cleaner presentations. However, I think the intent is to have it comply with what we required last month. And I think we can defer this to staff to ensure that it does comply, since we don't have the actual schematics of it.
I do have a question for you. It's been brought to my attention that you're expanding the school to the west part of Delray. Is that correct?
If I would prefer to sidebar about that if we could, and not make it a matter of public record at this time. It's not it's a conversation, and that's where it currently stands.
I'm just bringing it up because we entered into this because of the developers agreement when we went for 250 to 300 students. And if there's a west part of the school, it will bring more for family picnics, more traffic to the community. But I just want to make that public comment on my part.
Okay.
Commissioner Conlon.
Yeah, understood, and happy to discuss it.
It's something that should be disclosed.
Okay.
I spoke to Dr. Smith briefly about it prior to the meeting. He and I have agreed to meet should anything become more concrete in connection with that plan. He would meet with me to explain what their plans are, and we can explore how it may or may not impact the town.
Okay. I just wanted to make that known.
Yeah.
Understood.
So we're just approving this conceptual view here, and there will be construction drawings that will be approved by.
Right, so the school can proceed with it. Fair enough.
So, to understand that once the staff reviews the numbers, is it coming back or?
No, if it complies.
Okay. Gotcha.
If it complies with the code, as per the sketch, then they should be able to proceed with it. It seems to me. I agree with that. It's acceptable.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a level 3 architectural site plan review to permit the construction of a new 25 by 25, 625 square foot building in the parking lot of the existing school property to provide food storage for student and staff lunch program at Gulfstream School, subject to architectural plans being presented to town staff for final approval.
A second.
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Let's move on to the final application, which is 3545 North Ocean Boulevard. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, members. Jason Bibbins from Ferguson and Schmaming Architects. I'm here with John Lang, who will speak about the landscaping, and then Mark Powell, who will speak about the special exception we're seeking for modifications to an existing seawall. So Architecturally, just some very minor renovations to a 1958 Anglia colonial house at 3545 North Ocean Boulevard. So just overall site plan, there's some driveway adjustments that John Lane will discuss. Architecturally, we're looking to for proposal and approval of a freestanding pergola to the east, and then rearranging some minor steps, existing steps from the pool terrace down to the lower garden. Next slide, please. Minor architectural changes on the building facade. Up at the top of the page is the existing north elevation of the gym. We're simply taking the transoms away and providing single height full doors, and then some adjustments to the corners of the building with some slight modifications to the treatments on the corner. Next slide, please. Again, on the gym, what exists above was 2 doors with a transom above, and we're looking to do a pair of 2 doors with no transom and then a fixed side light in between. Also on the east elevation, above, and the addition in a freestanding pergola that will be a painted aluminum structure with a solid metal roof, complementing the architecture of the building. We go into the south elevation. Again, you see the pergola to the bottom right, the existing above. And then also to the south is just the rearranging of the stair. We'd like to reorganize that so it's against the building. Go to the next slide, please. West elevation, this actually really speaks to the stair itself. So on the left hand, starting at the top of the page is the existing west elevation. The site wall that you're seeing at the top of the page is existing terrain. And on the bottom of the page is where we're actually introducing the stair. We're reorganizing it to against the building to create a larger lawn at the lower level. Go to the next slide. And then just overall quick rendering of the proposed pergola that we are proposing to the east of the building. Just going quickly through the plans. Again, I'll let John Lang sort of speak about the landscaping. Just in the lower left, lower right corner, see the dashed area, which is removing the existing stairs, which are projecting into the lower lawn. And we just would like to turn those slightly south, reorganizing them against the building down to the lower lawn, to kind of open up that space a little bit more. Up at the top of the, up at the top of the plan, introducing a pergola, and then off to the side a spa. And then I believe the last slide is just an overall roof plan showing the freestanding pergola with its metal, solid metal roof, which is complementing the existing red copper on the building itself. These are just existing floor plans, just showing where the pergola doesn't exist currently at the top right, and the existing stairs from the terrace down to the lower garden. And I'll turn over to John.
Good morning. For the record, John Lang, Lang Design Group Landscape Architects. I'll just go over the main components of the project. The biggest part is twofold. One is the pool. We're putting in a lap pool, keeping the upper terrace the same, but getting rid of the freeform. If you look at this area right here, this is currently all a parking situation. We'd like to get a much better look up there and turn this into a garden, a welcome garden for the front door. So now this parking goes all the way to here. It's a sea of concrete. So we're going to put a garden at the front door and mitigate, get rid of some of the parking. The buffer to the north is existing, but there's got some holes in it. We plan on plugging those holes with native vegetation, putting in a nicer driveway material and realigning it slightly so that you get more of a, right now you don't know whether to go to the service side or the main side of the house. So I'm going to use a nicer material on the driveway going to the main and a minimal or diminished material to go to the service. We're going to replant under the trees out at the street with native vegetation and get a more of a Gulfstream look than that linear look that's there now. And then there's a few coconuts around the rear of the property that we're going to rearrange. So basically, we're just cleaning up. It's an old landscape. It's tired. We're going to spruce it up and get it up to date and make it look like it's a new house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? No? Yes, sir.
I have one question. Yeah. So did anybody make any comments with regard to when I realize this is primarily landscaping, reorientation of stairs, redoing the gym and the pool. And I pull out and see the demo every morning, so I kind of know what's going on. But do we have any comment on the metal roof, the new metal pergola on the front of the gym? Does staff have any comment on that? I don't know if that's something we've typically seen before.
On outside buildings, sometimes there's been different rooftops. I mean, like on the sergeants, they have, top, you know.
I realize we're migrating to more non-traditional materials for pergolas and whatnot, as opposed to wood on the ocean, which I'm not opposed to. I just didn't know if we had checked the specs on this, even though you're probably never going to be able to see it from A1A because of all the 7 new layers of landscaping, which I think we're all for. But can you just talk a little bit about that? Just, you know, it may come up in the future, just so we have an idea.
Yeah, so the interest of the painted aluminum is actually for durability, less maintenance, longevity. The metal roof is actually designed as a very, very shallow pitched roof. It's actually why we were using metal. And it's really just to create a sense of cover. But the intent of the design is actually to look and feel traditionally like a pergola. So the attenuated columns, the simple beam, the rafter tails, and then the purlins on top of that, which are basically concealing the metal roof. So our intent is that the metal roof is actually not visible. It's just there for cover.
And the rest of us, what, powder coated aluminum, or?
It will be, it'll be powder coated aluminum. Yes,
white.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. And it'll be a white color to kind of work and be compatible with the building color itself.
So it's only the portion on the pergola, not the structure itself.
Not the structure. The existing roof is to remain,
yeah,
which is clay tile. Yes.
Any other questions?
Well, aren't you doing seawall changes also?
Yes.
Can you describe that a little to us?
Yeah, let Mark actually speak to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Mark Powell with Eisenmenger and Stubbs Engineering. Let's see. We should have a set of seawall plans. Keep going here a little bit.
That's it.
That's all you have?
That's all I got.
Let me see if I can describe. Oh, this works here. So this property is fronted on the ocean side by an existing seawall. To the best of our knowledge, it was built in the late 50s or early 1960s. It's a steel sheet pile wall with a concrete cap, and we're proposing to replace this seawall with new sheet piles that'll be installed on the landward side, so the west side, and then a new concrete cap that projects above the existing seawall cap. Now, the new seawall will be no further seaward than existing. It'll just be 2 feet higher to add a little bit more protection to the property. We've already obtained our permit from DEP, and they've authorized it. We're cognizant of the north access, and we're not gonna have any impacts to that, and that'll remain open the entire time during construction.
How does it tie into the corners of the adjoining property owners? Is there, you're going to be 2 feet higher and then they're going to drop down?
Yeah, so these, absent the access, both adjacent properties are higher, a good 4 to 5 feet, because they've been redeveloped. So they have residences that are elevated compared to this property. This house is obviously a lot older, first living levels a lot lower. And because we're on the landward side, our sheets will be interlocked kind of on our side of the property. And basically, yeah, the cap will obviously project no further than than the property lines themselves.
Any other questions or comments on landscaping, seawall, or design?
So the seawall you're bringing up to the adjacent properties.
Yes, the seawalls, they stop on the south side. They'll stop just shy of the property line. So this property over here, let me clarify. It's got a seawall, the same old seawall.
Okay.
It keeps projecting south, but then they built immediately landward, they built an upland retaining wall to raise their grade.
Okay.
So our seawall will be 2 feet higher than this one to the south. But in effect, you're not really impacting their property per se, because their whole property's been built up with the secondary retaining wall. Up here, this wall is, I don't know the exact number, but it's more than 2 feet higher, this property here, the single family property.
Okay.
The seawall will be slightly higher than the grade at the the beach access, but I don't think we're having any negative effects due to that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any motions?
I just want to
Yes, sir.
ask about the pergola real quick. So I guess it's a metal structure, right?
Correct.
And it's motorized, so it's louvered, so it can be closed, right?
There's no actually motorized mechanism. It's a permanent solid roof.
Oh, it is a solid roof.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have an issue with the floor area ratio, but we just I think that when we were talking about that originally, I don't know if that came up or not. They have plenty of room, and the roof is metal, right?
Correct. Yes. Low pitched flat seam metal roof.
So Dina and I, in interpreting the code, have wrestled with whether or not to allow metal pergolas, because metal is typically I don't know, it's just not looked on fondly in our code. So it's almost like a first impression before the board. Are we okay with aluminum trellises and structures, or do we want it to be?
You couldn't see it at all. Can you see it from underneath, sitting beneath the pergola?
The physical metal roof?
Yeah.
No, you'll be looking up at painted white aluminum members of the pergola. So if you go back a couple slides, please.
Sorry, it's giving me nothing.
Needs to think a little bit.
So metal roofs are permitted on minor accessory structures, so that's okay. Really, just I'm looking at aluminum trellises versus a more traditional, or even.
I'm sorry, I totally
that minor?
misunderstood. I thought we were looking at wood beneath with just a metal cover at top to protect it.
No, so the
Everything's powdered.
let me get to the elevation first.
So it's more traditional than the newer system where you actually have fans in the roof and they open and close. Yeah. That's not what this is. This is more traditional than that.
Correct. So the intent of the design is a traditional pergola. So the elements that are going to be painted aluminum to look like wood is the columns we see here vertically. Traditional pergola with the beam stretching above the columns. And then on top of that are the rafter pales, which are basically projecting forward that have some slight articulation to them. Above that, for the pergola is purlins, which traditionally would give someone who's sitting below it shade and cover. But our client is interested in sitting out when it's raining. So the introduction of a metal roof on top of the pergola is to shield them when it's raining. That metal roof I was describing before, which is red copper, is something we're designing that's not visible from someone down at the beach looking back at the structure, because it's a very low pitched. Essentially, it's a half-inch, quarter-inch per foot sloping roof. So if this was built out of wood, for example, it would be a painted wood structure. The aluminum is just a more durable material. So it's not changing the aesthetic that someone might see. It would be more if someone walked up to it and tapped on a little bit. They would feel metal versus wood.
Slippery slope, though. How's the code read?
So there's nothing specifically prohibiting it, just in interpreting the code at a level 1, we have pushed people toward traditional wood and comparable materials rather than metal.
The difference, this is on the ocean, however.
Aluminum is a little bit more long wearing than wood.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean,
Like it's in the core.
Yeah, and I mean, this is like a one-off. We haven't seen this type of detail before with that the roof is copper. Yeah.
And that's 100% in keeping with the code. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's just a step below a fixed roof porch, but probably same, same cost.
You're gonna have built-in screening,
as
and
heavy
you're gonna
as
be
an
able to
extra
close
porch,
it
and I
off
like
by the
it.
built-in screens.
There will be motorized screens
I think
for
being on the
bugs.
ocean,
Yes.
Yeah, you really, it's starting to become problematic having the wood and other exposed metals.
Okay.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I guess I misspoke before. I said it was on the gym. It's actually facing the ocean. Motions. So this is a motion to approve your application for the Guy Rabideau Trust, 3545 North Ocean Boulevard. First motion is motion to approve a North Ocean Boulevard overlay permit to modify existing landscape, remove old vegetation past its prime, I believe is what that says. Revegetate to ensure privacy from road to property, and re-landscape along perimeter wall to give better appearance from the street within 50 feet of A1A inside the North Ocean Overlay District.
Second.
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Second motion is a land clearing permit to clear existing vegetation replaced to bring property up to standard.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Basil?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Third motion, special exception to replace seawall per section 7075, special exception as to setbacks for the seawall.
Second.
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Level 3 architectural site plan review to permit a freestanding accessory structure pergola, add an additional window to the east elevation and a new driveway and landscape renovations, including replacing the seawall.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein, Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, town manager report on banking.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we told you before that our current bank, Flagler, is being bought out by a savings and loan, and therefore that disqualifies it as being a qualified public depositor in the state of Florida. And so we have been shopping for banking services. I say we, that is Lolita and myself and Mr. Lyons participated in a couple of our interviews. We reached out to 5 banks, including a Bank of America, actually 6. I think we did call Northern Trust, PNC, Wells Fargo, let's see, Seacoast, and Truist. The larger banks, namely PNC, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, didn't seem to have a lot of interest in working with a small portfolio that the town of Gulfstream has. We did, some of them didn't even respond. Others responded just electronically. And, but we did sit down with Truist and Seacoast and interviewed them. We interviewed Wells Fargo, but not Bank of America or PNC. They just didn't seem interested. And we narrowed it down to 2 banks, one being Truist and one being Seacoast. In terms of service, we've been used to very personalized service with a small bank in Flagler. And between the two, probably would get that same kind of service out from Seacoast Bank. And then, of course, then we looked at the numbers, the proposal for our money market account in terms of interest from Truist was 4%. From Seacoast Bank was 4.85%. And we currently do have an account with Seacoast at this point in time, right?
A CD.
Yeah, CD with them, and our interest rate is 4.75% with that CD. We've tried 3 times in calling Truist to see if they can do any better than 4%, and they haven't been able to do that.
How safe is the funds with either bank?
Both of the banks, the first questions we ask if they're qualified public depositors, and they both are. Mark, can you describe the Florida's situation with the banks in terms of all the banks contributing to this fund?
Yeah,
describe that to the commission.
In the state of Florida, there's statute 280 where the banks can be a qualified public depository, which means that they all put a certain amount in to a collateral pool for the state, which essentially 100% insures any government account and an account that's qualified as a public depository. So essentially, if anything ever happened, the funds to replace would come from this collateral pool with the state.
From either of these banks then?
Yeah, both of them are qualified public depositories.
Seacoast Bank has over $15 billion in assets, over $12 billion in deposits, over $2 billion in market capitalization. I believe there's 15 locations in Palm Beach County. I believe 75 over the state of Florida. So, I mean, we tried to work on Truist Bank to get a better rate. Flagler, before, 4 months ago when we found out, our interest rate was 0.05, well, they raised it to 4.75. And you'll see that reflected in our revenues in the report that I'm about to give you. But so I wish we had that in there longer. I don't know exactly when they went up to that interest rate. Really, personal service, you would think that they would have told us about it. And so so that's what we're hoping for out of one of these banks. We did get business cards, and we're happy to find out when we had questions of Seacoast, the name on the business card answered the phone and didn't have to go to up higher to get a response from them, which is what we typically found out from most of those banks. We never were able to just call them and talk to them, and ask a question.
Comments?
I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, for the staff, it's good to be able to.
Is Seacoast safe, solid financially?
I think so.
Seacoast is a big bank.
Okay.
I've worked with them a long time, even when they were smaller.
Mark can comment about other towns and cities. Mark, he's the audit manager for Nolan Hope Minor. So he has experience working.
Yeah, we work with many other entities that use Seacoast, and they tend to be happy with Seacoast. Also, just from looking at over the years and the audits that Seacoast has dramatically grown over the last 10 years. You started seeing a lot of municipalities moving towards using them for banking over the last 10 years.
So financially, they're stable.
They appear to be stable, yes. I haven't seen any inkling of them
closing any facilities. So
lending too much money in.
Right, in the tech companies, so.
Well, it's a higher interest rate, it's fully protected funds and more personal service. And according to Vice Mayor, that he's had a lot of experience with them, so.
Okay.
What do you need from us? Just a consensus?
I think so,
Yeah.
yes.
Sounds like we're.
Seacoast. You still got to be nimble, still got to look at it,
Oh, yes.
Every 6 to 8 months, every 6 to 12 months.
I think that's the lesson.
I know it's a lot of work, and then it's like moving funds.
I think, Lolita, I think the fees were just comparable, right?
Correct. With our finances, there's no fees. Our fees are.
Okay. Well, I think what the Vice Mayor is saying, we need to check on it periodically to see about interest rates.
Right.
Make sure we don't get caught in another Flagler situation.
Right.
All right, ACH payments?
I'll speak to that.
Defer that to,
We have had a few problems with checks getting to because of the U.S. postal system. So we would like Lolita and I, since we handle all the banking. I do accounts receivable, she does accounts payable. We'd like to go to ACH payments, which is all online payments. It's safer. It would save us in postage. It would save us in, what were the other fees? There was other fees that it was going to save us in. All the way around, it's just safer. Yes, stop checks. So because of these lost payments from the USPS that didn't get to the company, your payment's late, we haven't received it. So then we had to stop paying it. That cost money. So with all these other things, that's just safer. We can get it right on time, date, due date. And the problem is, y'all always have to sign the checks, the bigger checks. So what we would like to do now is like you do with the 401 and 407, because that is ACH. We would just have you sign the invoices now before we would pay the ACH.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. My company got hit last week. Several checks stolen. Investigation shows it's happening at the Postal Service.
We got hit 3 weeks ago.
Did you?
It's so prevalent today with the postal system.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
That's why we moved our mailbox and like we have a note,
Yeah.
don't leave anything in here because they can get in there now. Yeah.
What they do with the shit, it's amazing. It looked like we had done it.
They're getting very smart with the way they can write it out.
So you have to go ACH. So, absolutely.
That's great.
Okay. That's that. Next ARPB meeting is July 27th at 8:30 a.m. There will be no August meeting for the ARPB. Finance report, Mr. Dunham.
Yes, so your update is 75% of the current budget. We anticipate that the audit will be presented to the commission in August. It was presented to us last year in July, but our change in auditors has kind of pushed that back a little while. And but other than that, I would recommend that you approve it.
Okay, well, accept it as submitted. Chief Jones, please report.
Mayor, Commission, thank you. You have received a copy in your packet, and I'd ask that you accept it as provided. I would also like to give you an update on our license plate recognition camera system, so you have an idea of how that's been operating over the last 30 days. Surprisingly enough, we have read over 17,000 license plates in the last 30 days in Gulfstream alone. On average, that equates to about 579 per day. Out of that 17,000, 350 of them have generated law enforcement alerts. Out of that equates to about 12 per day that we're responding to. The majority of those happen at nighttime, typically between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So the reason I bring that up is to let you know that one of our newest officers, Officer Gonzalez, who has over 20 years of experience with the Sheriff's Office and in this county, has been very, very diligent in being proactive with regards to how the license plate cameras are reading and giving us feedback on that data, and also initiating individual contacts with vehicles that are suspicious based on his experience as a police officer. And that has resulted in 3 pursuits that were initiated in the last 30 days as well. So we didn't make any apprehensions because obviously safety concerns and other reasons we weren't able to end the pursuit without it getting carried away. However, it avoided us being hit with any kind of criminal activity as a result.
Why would they be pursued?
They would be because they either chose not to stop when the officer had enough probable cause to initiate a traffic stop, or because there was some kind of an alert that would trigger on their license plate. For example, a temporary tag that had been flagged by another agency for criminal type behavior or something along those lines. So
very good. Sounds like it's working.
And the final camera that will be installed in Place Soleil will be up and running by the end of the month.
Great. Questions? Okay, let's move on then to the budget. I'll turn it over to Mr. Dunn.
Okay. Very places. Sure. Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to present our 2024 proposed budget to you. I also want to let you know that we do have Ms. Rebecca Travis with Baxter Woodman, who is here. And of course, we have Mark Bymaster, who we introduced earlier. He is the gentleman that we are using as a CFO. And he is, again, the audit manager, and is a CPA with Nolan Holton Minor. And so he has been a big help to Lolita and myself. Lolita has done a great job, I will tell you, during this whole budget preparation. I will have to say to you that this has been probably the most challenging budget that I've done since I've been here. And not because the regular budget minus the CIP is rather unremarkable. It would be a normal budget that we would be presenting to you. But because of the CIP, that presents a lot of questions that the commission will have to answer. So we really are looking at a 24 budget, but we've been looking at the 25 budget all the while because the CIP project is really the driver of this budget. And And so we have some charts that I think we've handed out hard copies to you, but we also have them up there. I don't know that you can't read them up there any better than the ones in front of you. So about a year ago, I guess in August of 22, the dates on the time. Well, let me go through the things that I'm required to read and put into the record before we start on the CIP. This document is the proposed fiscal plan for the operation of the town of Gulfstream during the next fiscal period. The budget is presented to the town commission in a format that substantially conforms to the standards of public financial presentations known as generally accepted accounting principles promulgated by the National Council of Government Accounting. The annual operating budget is a basic fiscal document, and once adopted will become the fiscal work program for our community and provide the basis for carrying out the town commission's decisions on policies and programs for the improvement, growth, and orderly maintenance of the town of Gulfstream. So as I'm looking at the manager's message to the town commission, if you want to follow along. So you can see we do always try to update you on our current general fund balance numbers. This year, as I said, our audit is about a month later than we typically have. And so I don't have the 22 fund balance numbers for you. Mr. Bymaster and I believe that we will probably be adding anywhere from $500,000, that's on the low end, to $1 million in our general fund balance. So you see 7.6 million here. You can expect that to be at least 8 million or maybe 8.5 million. And that's critical as we start talking about addressing the CIP project. So the rollback rate in 24 is 3.2041 mils. The existing millage rate is, that is the 23 budget, is 3.6724 mils. The proposed millage rate that I'm presenting to you today is at 3.6724 mils. As you can see, that's the same millage rate that we have in 23. And the adjusted ad valorem proceeds from operations this year are projected to be $5,225,000. So the ad valorem proceeds at the 24 rollback rate, which, as I mentioned to you, is 3.2041 for operations, would be around $5,300,000. The ad valorem proceeds at the proposed millage rate that I'm presenting to you today at 3.6724 mils would be $6,075,702. So that's general fund ad valorem revenue. The final gross taxable value for Gulfstream in 22 was $1,432,000,000. The estimated gross taxable value for Gulfstream at the end of 23 will be $1,654,000,000. That's a 16-point increase, or approximately $200 million. And I've listed some items here in capital purchases that I anticipate this year. The water valve exercise machine. We had that in the budget last year. We didn't buy it, but we're going to this year because we'll be adding 37 valves with our new CIP work. We currently have, I think, Anthony, 87?
Yes.
Okay, and we're adding 37, right?
We're adding 46, I think.
Okay, all right. And then you can see there's a list of some police items for you to see. We also always put in $100,000 in weather-related contingencies. So we do that every year. I don't think that there's nothing, again, if you look through the notebook or the workbook that we have here of our line items, there's nothing really remarkable. The one that I might point out to you is the $270,000. Where do I have that? $270,000 under insurance, our property liability insurance. We were told that it would go up probably 60%. We're working on looking at alternatives, but to be conservative about this, I put in the number if we end up staying with its municipal insurance trust. But did you say that you've gotten some responses?
I had a letter yesterday from Gary, who is our insurance provider, and they said because of the fiscal year, it didn't open business till 7/5. So they were inundated with the state schools and colleges who received the same devastating increases that the cities did. So they've opened up for the 10/1 business now, and Garen said they're on the chase to see what they can get for us and how they can work with FMIT, because they're going to tell, we've been with FMIT forever. So they're going to tell them that we're now looking to try and get them to come down. But they hope to have numbers to us by the end of July.
Yeah, so I mean, and I am going to recommend to you, like we did last year, that and we didn't do this until last year since I've been here, also have an agenda item regarding the budget in August to clean up anything that might come up today, or to also talk about perhaps the status of our police salaries versus other cities in Palm Beach County, all of which are doing their budgets as we are right now, and finalizing their labor union contracts. Chief, maybe you can speak to how many responses that you've received.
We've probably gotten about 60% of the responses that we've sent out asking for that data back. However, some of them are in the final stages of their budget process and or negotiation process. So the remaining 40% have either not responded because they don't wish to give us the data, or because they're going through
They're not
their
done.
negotiation process themselves.
Right. So I think we would be able to see how we stand, so to speak, in by comparison with other towns and cities. We did address this a couple of years ago. If you remember, with police salaries, we were in the bottom third. I think we're as it appears now, we may still be in the bottom third with, as I call it, no chance to make the playoffs. So I'm not sure that that's where we want our police to be, but that's why I'm suggesting now that we probably will have more information to you guys in August regarding the status of our situation versus other towns and cities.
Changes other than what we discussed a month ago?
Yes, if you remember, I told you that was that picture in time.
Was historical.
It was historical. And the reason is, I mean, literally, as we did that, we had 3 or 4 applicants that were nearly on the hook with us, and the move that we did then, actually, we've hired what, 2 since then?
So we've hired 2 with a third starting probably
August 1st.
August to September, depending on, background and all those things, which will take our vacancy position from where we were when I was hired as chief. At that time was 4 to 0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And these budgets have the payroll that we discussed, the increases in police salaries a month ago. Are they in this?
Yeah, that was for starting salaries, and
that change again with what we've.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's
Yeah,
what,
but instead of being in the middle, I mean, I don't know how everybody feels, but maybe if we can go up a notch instead of being in the middle, would that help?
it always seems like you're
We would
right.
like to hire the people, the police
Right.
officers that are qualified and good. And I asked before if you could pay more to somebody who had so much experience or whatever. And I know that's not possible, but,
Well,
We actually are
we're
a plan
working
to
on,
Potentially take that
Yeah.
information. and
Right.
incorporate.
okay. I just want to make
I
sure
mean,
we end up with
yes.
qualified people.
Oh, we totally agree. And we had a very good session with our labor union
This week.
2 days ago.
Okay.
I mean, there's other things that we're considering, maybe even requiring a college degree. Delray Beach does that.
Really?
Yeah, and so there are other. I mean, we're looking at other ways to compensate our
And
incentivize our current employees by some of the jobs that they do other than just patrol. I mean, can you give a couple of examples?
Yeah, so one of the best examples, as obviously we're dealing with it as we're hiring staff, is an officer takes on an additional responsibility of training, which they have to be certified to do. So, you know, that's a component that when they're training, you want to be able to provide them with some incentive and reward for taking on that additional responsibility. But there are at least
There's
a
others.
dozen others that we can think of as
Right.
well.
So we're looking at some creative ways to, as you said, incentivize the officers with their existing salaries.
We'll have more information on this next month.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Let's move on to the next.
Okay. So, since we're talking about personnel, I am recommending a 5% COLA across the board. And again, Ms. Renee did a survey through her listserv of clerks of all the towns and cities. And I guess we had 32 out of 39 cities respond, which I think is really pretty good. And you can see that the results that we had, 16 cities or half of them were giving 5% COLAs. 8 cities again did not. I guess 7 cities didn't respond. And then there's a couple of variations on that. 1 city's giving 6, 2 cities are giving 3. And then they have some combinations of a COLA and merit. And then Briny Breeze does not have COLA because they only have 2 part-time employees. And then 8 cities just have merit increases. And as you can see, Manalapan just approved a contract with the police department that they made that it also included the rest of the staff, right?
Yes, typically, I don't know if they did that this year or not, but typically they honor, from my understanding, they honor whatever agreement they do with the union, they also do with the remainder of their employees.
That's correct.
And they did,
Okay.
I think, 7% this year.
Okay. So again, we'll have more information about that even in August. So I would like to then, I mean, do you have any questions about the budget and the line items that we have in here before we begin to talk about the impact of the CIP on the rate that we set for our ad valorem taxes? I mean, anything that stands.
Questions? No.
Okay, 2 numbers I will point out to you though. That support what I'm proposing to you. So that would be on page 3, the general fund revenues. You can see down at the bottom the line item called operating transfer. That's 2.8 million, and that is use of fund balance to balance the budget. And so what it's balancing is, you can see on page 5, down at the bottom of the page in roads and streets, we have construction in progress at $5 million. And so you can see the strength of our revenues in that we did not need to say, okay, we need $5 million from the fund balance. If this is the way that, and this is what we had,
Going into a.
yeah, this is what we had planned over the last 4 or 5 years to strengthen our fund balance so we can help fund our CIP program. So we are getting, and there's interest on investment. You can see at 200,000 there in the revenues of the general fund. It wouldn't have been that much unless Flagler had raised our interest. So those are two numbers I wanted to point out. Then if you would turn to page 6, the water fund. Again, in revenue, you can see water fund balance transfer in at 1.3 million, and down at the bottom under expenses, we have capital outlay at 1.5 million to cover the costs that were proposed by Baxter and Woodman for our 24 and impacts of the CIP on our budget.
That's 6.5 million.
Correct.
Drawing from both reserves.
Correct. And so, so what I'd like to do, Renee's already got one of the spreadsheets I'd like to show you up there. It would be, that's the one that is got larger print. So this spreadsheet was provided to us by Baxter and Woodman, and so I would ask you to look at. Okay, so we'll just start from 2018. All of the numbers that you see beginning in 2018 to 2024. Those are numbers in beige. Those are numbers that have already been paid. That's what we have spent to date in the CIP program. Then beginning in 24, you can see their numbers for the core projects at 6,400,000 in general fund and 1,700,000 in the water fund. Now, the reason I've got this one and then I've got a second one we'll put up that we've given to you is that these numbers are based on a 12-month calendar year, okay? And so what we did, we broke those numbers down and so that it better reflects a fiscal year situation. In the other spreadsheet that you have in front of you, the one that's similar to it, but it's a little smaller and maybe harder.
The bulk of the construction is all at 24 because there's not that much to be charged in 23 if you don't get mobilized until October.
Well, okay, so here's an explanation for that. Yeah. So, you know, up until recently, we were expecting to be able to start the construction in maybe August or September. The design process and the permitting. I mean, Ms. Travis, can you speak to the permitting? I mean, has that been updated any? So we're still getting comments back from the permitting agencies with our permits, and so we would prefer to try to answer all the questions from the permitting agencies before we send it out to bid. I'll let Rebecca tell us or update us on that.
Rebecca Travis with Baxter and Woodman. Yeah, typically we want to when we go to bid, we want to have all the permits in hand. The only permit we're still waiting for is the Corps of Engineers having to do with the discharge into the intercoastal, and typically they want to look at the seagrass impacts or anything along those lines. So it could be item that might change the design in some way. So we don't want to go out to bid until we get that permit. So we've gotten a preliminary, we submitted for the permit, we've gotten comments back, and we've gone back to the Corps with the responses. So we're just waiting for that. So if assuming, so that backed us up about a month from where we thought we were going to be bidding. So on the CIP table in the bottom, item 4, we just have the anticipated bid and construction time frame. So if we estimate the start of construction still would be around November of this year with an 18-month construction time frame. As Mr. Dunham mentioned, the costs have been kind of combined into years 24, 25 for the construction, and those are the numbers in green. So that's a construction cost, and then the numbers below that in the beige are contracted costs to pay us to do the construction administration services.
So, Mr. Stanley, yes, I mean, we did have some costs listed in 23, but because the whole permitting and bidding process has been pushed back a little, I chose to put those costs in 24.
Sure.
And so now comparing her, and just maybe stay there, they may have some questions. So comparing her numbers to what we did is I just took her numbers, divided them by 12, and then multiplied by 9 beginning in January. That would go through the rest of this fiscal year. So the numbers you see in the smaller type spreadsheet are the numbers having gone through that process. Does that make sense to you, or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, and so October, November, and December's numbers, I went ahead and added those to the year 2025. I mean, because we couldn't just throw them away. So we just added them to 2025 numbers. And so as you can see, I mean, both years are equally as important. And the bulk of our whole capital improvement program. So again, we also have another spreadsheet for you that Mr. Lyons wanted us to develop. Rebecca too had started this. Mr. Bymaster has updated it and perhaps made some changes to it. This doesn't really, this represents, these two spreadsheets only represent CIP costs. This represents other capital improvements, capital costs that we might incur during any one of these years. As you can imagine, that's pretty hard to predict. I mean, we can kind of look at the average costs and budgets that we've had since 2018, but that's what the difference between these spreadsheets and the ones that we were looking at. So I know there's a lot of numbers in here. I think the critical, so I'll say this generally, the top line assumes keeping the same millage rate and adding approximately $800,000, $850,000 in general fund revenues over the next couple of years. The middle one assumes half that proposed millage rate, and what the net fund balance and water reserves that provides to us through 28. And then the bottom one assumes that we would go with the rollback rate. So what this shows is the impact that it has on our fund balances and our ability to pay for these projects from our fund balance.
What did we figure again a couple of years ago when we went through this metric? If we're going out to 26 through 28, what did we figure was the for a town our size, what the proper fund balance was, given the
Right.
current gross revenue.
I don't recall what I mean, there's kind of a,
Metric 20%.
I think it's 20%. I mean, there's a kind of a classroom number.
Of course,
that-
uncovered hurricane damage is supposed to come out of it too, which is an unknown.
Right. I mean, look, I don't want to lie. I mean, our fund balance is very healthy and not the fund balance that most towns and cities
We were hovering
carry.
around 900 to 1.7, which was low.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
We had
the
other-
fund
we had
balance
other
got down to
economic drains.
$975,000.
I think we agreed that we discussed wasn't necessarily an agreement that we wanted to help with
Correct.
balance, which would take us between 3 and 4, which is sort of the number you're projecting out.
Right.
26 through 28. So we wouldn't want to go any lower than that.
Right. And Mr. Bymaster is certainly here to talk about that.
Construction hasn't started yet, so.
Right.
Yeah, so these are rough numbers. You know, there's obviously a lot of variables that can happen between now and the future, 4 years.
You're recommending keeping the rate the same? Is that correct?
Well, that's what my recommendation is, and I think I probably have, that is to keep it healthy because one, we don't even know what our bid numbers are going to come
Correct.
in at this point in
Among other
time. I
things.
mean, they could come in higher, but I mean, we do have a professional that looks at these bids and determines her proposals based on current bids. I mean, over the last 6 months, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so,
I mean, we worked very hard to establish the reserves that we have so that we're not borrowing money for this important CIP project. And I think, as the Vice Mayor said, we need to maintain healthy reserves given the uncertainty of future construction costs in this project.
Right.
So I think your recommendation is a sound one.
To keep the military.
Right.
Okay.
I agree. I think everyone agrees.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Greg, why is there, I'm just looking way out to 2026 and we've got resurfacing and place oscillator. The numbers are different from one sheet to the next.
Oh, well, okay, so Mr. Bymaster did take the liberty of, this is where I think you added.
We just added, the numbers that are red I believe were based on 2018 estimates.
That's correct. They were 2018 numbers when we did the original CIP, and we put them in red just because everyone needs to be aware of that. So we recognize that they're probably way too low, and I assume Mr. Bymaster adjusted
Yeah,
those.
we just increased them 50%, just as it's still unknown, but that tends to be where we're kind of at over the construction cost over the increases over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so this is going to be a project that as we get the numbers and we begin construction, I mean, we're not even sure that it actually will start in January. I mean, with the supply chain issues and that sort of thing, that everything that's involved in this. But I think the beauty of our position at this point in time is that we don't have to make an unsound decision about going out for a loan for money. I mean, we're covered, and we just have to pay attention to how the numbers come in.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I mean, any question? I mean, this is certainly
No, but the charts are extremely helpful. We're able to kind of work through it and see some projections.
Right.
Very
Forecast.
quickly. Yeah, without doing this and this.
Yeah, I appreciate
Very
you
good.
doing
Thank you.
that.
I know it's a
and
lot of work.
Putting it into the fiscal year.
Yes.
So that we have a better understanding of what we're probably going to be facing. in terms of-
Yes, so we're really kind of looking at 24s and sort of 25s budget. So,
Any other questions on the specifics of the budget? If not, let's turn to our responsibility, which is
wait a minute.
some motions. Unless
Yeah,
you have something else to
and
say.
I have those motions for you. Do you have them? Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could have that.
Vice Mayor
Why don't you give that to the Vice Mayor?
Yeah,
Hey, we're still going here. We're hot.
That's outside of
everybody else set?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got a series of motions in compliance with Florida law for our first initial budget discussion meeting. The first motion is a motion that the proposed millage rate for fiscal year 2023-2024 is 3.6724.
Second.
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Second motion is to certify that the 2024 rollback rate is 3.2041.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Third motion is to set the budget meeting as of September 8th, 2023 at 5:01 PM. And that again will be the public hearing for the tentative budget adoption.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
Fourth motion is a motion that the September 27th, 2023 meeting at 5:01 PM will be the public hearing for the final budget adoption.
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. And that was all.
All the motions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your efforts on that budget. Let's move on to the ordinance number 23-/2. Ms. Baker?
An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the Town Code of Ordinances at Chapter 22 nuisances, Article 2 unsightly, unsafe, or unsanitary conditions, Section 2231 prohibited, Chapter 66 zoning, Article 5 site plans, Division 2 architectural site plan review, levels 1, 2, and 3, Section 66 141 applicability, and Chapter 70 Gulfstream Design Manual, Article 5 area-wide standards, Division 3 general landscape standards, Section 7148 principles and adding standards, Division 3 general landscape standards. A new Section 7152 artificial turf, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, providing an effective date upon this first reading, July 14th, 2023.
Ordinance 23/2 has been read to us on first reading. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve ordinance 23/2.
Second?
Renee?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. And thank you to Attorney Nazaro for putting a lot of time into this ordinance and drafting it for us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Any other comments by commissioners? If not, thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay, so what is this? I need a legal representation. So,
So